right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked us out before, we are primarily a commentary and an interview podcast. And today it's kind of a little of both because I have a fellow podcaster on the studio line. Sam is on the studio line, and she has a podcast called the Shades of Jade Podcast. How are you doing, Sam?
Great. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you. Now, Sam is her podcast is very much like ours. It's very topical. It's news, culture, all that kind of stuff. And lately, she's been really covering the Jeffrey Epstein case. Everybody's heard of it. Everybody knows something about it. What is it for you? What has it been? What about it has made it a topic that you want to cover it as much as you do?
Well, everyone's concerned about it, and it's important to everyone on both sides of the aisle. And I saw a lot of fake fabricated things that were included in the files that I think not everyone understands, that just because it's in the files doesn't mean that it's real. And so I wanted to get that information out there and provide something that someone can listen to that's just very straightforward and not slanted.
Yeah. I've been kind of skeptical that something really big is going to drop out of this. I have been for a while. I mean, I think it's going to raise some eyebrows. And there might, like, for example, with Prince Andrew, and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But the idea that it's going to blow everything up, I don't know that it will. I think that one of the myths, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we hear about this client list. When the client list comes out, a client list doesn't mean anything. I mean, you could have Trump on there, you could have Clinton on there, you could have Alexander Hamilton on there, you could have Abraham Lincoln on there. It doesn't put them at the scene of a crime.
Yes.
So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So one of the things that Jeffrey Epstein did was he almost collected people, and anyone who had any sort of power was someone he wanted to make connections with. And I'm seeing that a lot of the people that are showing up in the files, he may have given an invitation to, and they might not have accepted. Or for the case of Hakeem Jeffries, his campaign asked Jeffrey for donations, but Hakeem did not know anything about that. But now he's in the files. So, but that's just the type of person Jeffrey Epstein was. He wanted connections with every single person. And that's why it seems, I think a lot of people are seeing, everyone's in the list, everyone's crooked, and they're running with it. There were some really bad people involved with Epstein, but I'm seeing most of the names that are being thrown out there were not involved with him in a criminal matter.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I always kind of laugh because guys like him do not have a little black book, with all these names in it. It just doesn't work like that. Just because your name came up on a list, he could have emailed me or anybody at somewhere along the line. And just being on that plane, and I don't know about his specifically, but I know a number of individuals who own planes, and even if you're wealthy, you got to keep that thing flying, and it gets subbed out a lot of the, so you could have somebody that, take a flight from Houston to Los Angeles and not even know who owns the plane. It could be subbed out as part of some sort of a charter service. And I think one of the reasons why people are nervous about this is, like you say, it's very politicized. So if your name does come up in connection with Epstein and you happen to be a Democrat, the Republicans are all over it. And then the other way around. So you're guilty just by having your name is somewhere in the mix, when in actuality, it may have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein himself, let alone criminal doing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to add something else. Go ahead.
Well, sorry. The one thing that, Donald Trump has called this like a hoax, et cetera. And I think that that's kind of the point he was trying to make. I'm not trying to make excuses for him or put words in his mouth, but he was originally in support of releasing the files. He did sign the Epstein Transparency Act. I do think he somewhat predicted that this was going to be an issue where we were going to see all these fake things, all these people being accused of doing things that they didn't do just because their names were in the files. And I think that he did see that this was going to be a mess. Unfortunately, people wanted the files regardless, and I think it is important to get them out there.
Yes. I hope I'm saying her name correctly, Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay.
Yeah.
She is kind of like an interesting figure. Let me pause that just a moment.
Okay.
How far back were there whispers about Jeffrey Epstein? I've heard back in the 1990s there were things known. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Maybe even closer to the late 1980s, but definitely 1990 and on.
Okay. And a lot of people say, well, why didn't somebody say something or do something? And the fact of the matter is it really depends on what they knew. For example, I did stand-up comedy for many, many years, long time ago. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the headliners I met from the West Coast, there were two things that they said pretty consistently. One was that Bill Cosby was not a nice guy. Okay. And number two, Robin Williams stole material. That's what they...
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I got from all of them. Okay. As a matter of fact, the one told me that they called it a Robin light at this one place in Los Angeles. And if that light came on, that meant go to B material because Robin's in the audience.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
No, that's not sinister, but obviously the stuff with Bill Cosby was. Mm-hmm. And you could say the same thing about, Weinstein.
Yeah.
It's one thing to know that somebody's up to something. It is another thing to be able to prove it. Mm-hmm. It is you can't go to the police and say, "Hey, I heard this guy's a bad guy. You better check." You can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And these guys are very good at covering their tracks and making sure that their direct hand in anything is not known. So I can understand why it went back so many years within action. I understand why there wasn't a lot of movement on it.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, from what I understand, this Ghislaine Maxwell came from wealth. Uh-huh. And here's somebody that could do anything with their life that they wanted to do. I always feel like that's such a waste. And we'll get to Prince Andrew in a minute, but the same thing. Mm-hmm. This is somebody who's born into a situation where you could do anything with your life that you wanted. Find a cure for cancer or whatever. And they end up getting involved in this quagmire. Right. How did Ghislaine Maxwell cross paths with Jeffrey Epstein? How did that happen? Because she came from what I understand, an upper class background.
Right. So I haven't looked too far into how they first became connected. I believe it had to do with her father knew Jeffrey Epstein first, and they were introduced that way. Like you said, she could have done anything, and I think this whole thing, there's some Israel stuff going on, and people are really wanting to entertain ideas dealing with that, and I can see why they would, considering the situation, because it's like why would she do that? She could do almost anything, and really, Epstein came from nothing, but he had an ability to help powerful people, even if it not just with like the sex trafficking, but with finances, with connections, just business oriented things. And I think part of her had to enjoy some of the ugly things that she was doing with Jeffrey Epstein. Otherwise, why would she be doing it?
Now, he was a financier, correct? Mm-hmm. Is that a good way to put it? So he manipulated investments, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily that there's anything wrong with that, but he was obviously good at it because he amassed a fortune. Mm-hmm. Does anybody question the amount of money that he was able to raise? I haven't heard too much that anything he did in terms of the finance world was unethical.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, people do kind of wonder how he came from out of nowhere to suddenly having all this money, and even the things that he was participating in, it still seemed like he had more money than what added up. And so of course there's a theory there, where several of them, as to nefarious activities that would have helped him gain that money. And I think that feeds into the idea of blackmailing. And of course, there's no proof of blackmailing, but I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that wasn't happening, considering the powerful people that he surrounded himself with.
I would have a tendency to believe that, only because let's say you amassed a fortune of billions of dollars strictly through your ability to predict the stock market or whatever, manipulate certain investments, know when to pull out, know when to stay in, when to dump a stock, whatever. If you're really that good, why would you be messing around with something that could topple your empire? I mean, if you really had, let's say, six proclivities of your own, that's one thing I can see entertaining. But to have all these other people involved, why would you put all that at risk, unless this was a revenue stream for you?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, he could have, I do think he still would have gotten caught with the massages and everything from the 2008 conviction. However, I don't know that it would have gone very much further if more people were not involved. The more people you have involved, the more of a risk that you take in getting found out. And so there almost had to have been financial incentive involved.
Yes, you would certainly presume so. So with all this being said, the other mystery that I don't quite understand is we have all these victims and no perpetrators. And one of my feminist friends, she told me, I just find it very odd that the one person who was convicted is a female. All the men that were involved in this, apparently, and doing all these things, we don't know anything about them. How is that possible? How can you have Ghislaine, for example, convicted, all of these people coming forth saying, they were victims of this ring, but there's not one person that comes up as definitively one of the people who participated in it.
That's kind of the biggest thing of it, because why is she in prison? If she was trafficking, who was she trafficking to? Like Prince Andrew, he's faced repercussions with his own family, but not the law. Jean-Luc Brunel, he was in prison in France and then hung himself. He might have actually faced some criminal charges. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere here in the United States, where Epstein had a lot of connections to. So if I were Ghislaine, I'd be like, well, what am I in prison for then? If and I know she can't just say that and get released. But I think as terrible as a person as she is, if we're convicting her of that, then we need to be going after these people that she trafficked to.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that. The other thing, you mentioned Prince Andrew. Now here's another person that is famous for being born. All right? Yeah. And I don't want it to impugn the royal family too much, because, for example, those kids are put through a certain amount of public service and other things, and a regiment that children of presidents are not.
Right.
Okay. There's been spoiled brats running around the White House, many, many times. And with some of this stuff, I don't feel it's fair when people say these people don't do anything. I think Princess Diana did a lot with the opportunity that she had.
Yes.
And Harry, you got to give him credit, man. He went out there in Afghanistan and all these places, did some dangerous stuff. I saw a video one time of Harry saluting the tomb of the unknown soldier in Washington. And he spun around on his heels and saluted. I mean, he looked like he belonged there way more than any president I ever saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But by the same token, okay, now all of a sudden, all his family's bad, he's a victim, and he's famous at the end of the day for doing nothing other than being born. He's got a wife that's famous for doing nothing other than marrying somebody who's famous for being born. And I think that, does a lot to hurt the royal family, but not to impugn their public service, because, those two boys in particular, the Diana children, they were put through a lot of rigors that you may not expect. Right. But with that being said, came a lot of fame, opportunity, and Prince Andrew could have done anything with his life that he wanted to do. He could have done something like Diana done. He could have done something to help the poor. He could have done something. He could have started his own business, started his own chocolate factory, whatever he wanted to do. Yeah. And instead he gets involved with Jeffrey Epstein. I can see the allure for Jeffrey Epstein, because that bought his way when he started hanging out with the prince. That brought him into the upper echelon, most certainly, of leaders in Europe. Okay, without question. Okay. What was the incentive for Prince Andrew, unless he just wanted to mess around with things he shouldn't have been messing around with?
I think that's probably what it was. I think that a lot of these people, and I think it deals with power too. So I feel like sometimes people with a lot of power, they want to press the limits. And sometimes that might take them to very dark places. They want to do things that they're not supposed to do. But obviously some of those proclivities had to have been there. However, he found out that Epstein was involved with those things. I'm not quite sure, because how do you say, like, hey, are you trafficking minors? Because I'm into that. You're not going to just find that out. I do think that Epstein was good at kind of scouting people. I was just reading, and haven't covered it yet, that there was like a man in the palace that may have been giving Epstein access to the royal family when he wasn't able to talk to Prince Andrew directly. So that'll be in a future episode. But I think somehow it might just start with a party, with hanging out, and then you find out, oh, we happen to be interested in the same things that we shouldn't be doing. And it's not like you can turn somebody into a pedophile. It had to have been there before.
Some of the pictures that came out with him kind of straddling what would appear to be small children are pretty shocking, actually.
Yeah. Yes, and what's frustrating is that you hear over and over and over again, no proof of wrongdoing, no proof of wrongdoing. But when you look at those photos that wrongdoing is occurring, that's inappropriate to be happening. And that's the biggest frustration that I've had going through these, because my husband was just asking me earlier today, like, I thought these people were guilty, but in your episode, you're saying there's no proof of criminal activity. And it's because there's not, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And with the redactions of the victims, which I totally understand, but you can't tell for sure if they're a minor in many of those photos. And I do want to say, the statute of limitations, usually there is none for cases involving minors. It kind of depends. So these people could still be prosecuted in some of these cases where we have photos like that.
Yeah. Well, predators will often put themselves into what are called he said, she said situations deliberately. And I don't know if you follow football or not, but the whole thing with Deshaun Watson up at the Cleveland Browns, there was the guy that had allegations of messing around with massage therapists. And he contacted most of these girls I believe the New York Times or something like that did an investigation. And it was something like 50 or 60. And there was 20, 25. I'm not even sure how many of them actually ended up pressing charges.
Mhm.
So, and his defenders would come out and say, okay, well, he wasn't convicted on anything. The prosecutors didn't have anything. Okay, that don't mean innocent. You have to look at this in a more practical level. Here was a guy who's a professional athlete, has access to the best massage therapists in the world, the best, trainers in the world, the best people who can rehabilitate injuries and all that in the world.
Mhm.
Why is he messing around with these small-time trunk slammers?
Yeah.
He's doing it to put himself in a one-on-one situation.
Yeah.
So here again, it's all alleged, as they say. It's
Right.
all alleged, but
Right.
it doesn't bode well. And I'll hear again, a lot of people don't understand this, but this is a violation of your morals clause when you get that amount of money from an agency like that. You're not soliciting massages from these girls that are working out of the back of their car. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. So,
Right.
so these types of individuals often put themselves into situations that it's very hard to prove, and somebody who's doing it on a world stage, on a world scale,
Mhm.
the most powerful people in the world are going to cover their tracks pretty well. Isn't that
Yeah.
what the problem is here?
Yeah. Yeah. There's absolutely.
Yeah.
In the this also makes me think, I used to be a bartender, and you can get feelings off of people, and they're a creep. You can't
Mhm.
call the cops based off of feelings.
No.
Even you can see certain things happen, and it's like, well, that is lacking in morals, but technically not a crime. So,
Yeah. It's tough, and
Mhm.
it's unfortunate that it's very hard to prove, but that's
Mhm.
kind of where we're at now. You mentioned some of the redactions.
Mhm.
We're in production today. This is what is this? This is February
12th.
12th. Okay,
Yep.
yesterday, Pam Bondi was on the hot seat. Okay,
Mhm.
and a lot of people were critical of Pam Bondi because she didn't apologize to a lot of the victims that were apparently in that hearing.
Yep.
Okay, 'cause we're talking about a congressional hearing. Pam Bondi was there,
Mhm.
and all these files that were released. I do agree with. They
Yeah.
can't put anybody in there who was accused of anything. They don't dare put that out, but they accidentally put the names of the victims out there, and a
Yeah.
lot of these victims are targets of people wanting to find them,
Mhm.
fetishes, and God knows what else.
Yeah.
And their lives were, they became famous for reasons that you don't want to be openly discussing.
Yeah.
And she refused. Now, she did say she was sorry that it happened and sorry for anything that happened, but she did not say, we're sorry that we messed up and left this out.
Yeah.
How did you feel Pam Bondi handled herself in that hearing?
I feel that Pam Bondi has been an extreme disappointment almost since the beginning of the Epstein files with that binder bull crap about a year ago. I think that she just can't seem to hold herself accountable, and she lies. She lies a lot. She's had a year to work on this, and she, just for a recap in case the audience doesn't know, a
Mhm.
bunch of conservative influencers were invited to the White House under a different they thought they were there for different reasons. And then they were handed these binders that say Epstein files, phase 1, whatever. They
Mhm.
walk out of the building, they think they've got something groundbreaking. And they're holding up these binders. Everyone's taking photos. It was a complete setup. And people still criticize those people to this day. They didn't know until they got home that all it contained was flight logs that had already been previously made public. And as we
Mhm.
discussed earlier, you have to keep those planes moving. Most of those flights, Jeffrey Epstein was not present, and they were not to his island. And then she promised that there were going to be 3 phases. Well, where are the other 2 phases? They never
Mhm.
came. If she would have just started out releasing in small batches here and there, making no promises, but releasing some, that would
Yeah.
have given ample time to make sure that the correct redactions were made, and it would have kept the public happy. But then suddenly the files that she said were on her desk, oh, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing here. And they focused on that client list thing. And it's like, people aren't asking just for a client list. We're asking for the files. But there's no client list to see here. So she needs to be removed. There needs to be a different attorney general. I cannot say enough bad things about her performance. It has been a mess from the beginning. She should have apologized to those victims. Other victims have said, it's fine if you unredact my name. I want it out there. I want people to know what they did to me. But then people of power, their names were redacted. And that's not what the Epstein Files Transparency Act called for. It just called for the protection of the victims. It's a complete mess.
Yeah. It sounds like it. Before I let you go, we do have to discuss this. I don't know if you know who Senator Kennedy is, John Kennedy from, I think, Louisiana. Okay, he's a card.
Yes.
And he famously said, with that, those Southern sensibilities, he said, let's see here. He said, drywall, Christmas ornaments, and Jeffrey Epstein. And he goes, name 3 things that don't hang themselves.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Okay. Obviously a great line. It seems very odd that, nobody, one of the most sought after criminals in the world.
Yeah.
Everybody turns their back on him, and just for some reason, there's a perfect explanation why the cameras didn't work during those few minutes. It really raises a lot of suspicions. What's your take on that?
Well, I looked at the autopsy photos, and I am not a medical examiner. I used to be a CNA. I have handled dead bodies, and I have asked some medical professionals. I'm waiting. I want to ask several their opinion. The ligature marks on his neck do not make sense to me in the location and the angle at which they're at for someone to have hung himself. They're straight across. Also, it's so tight. It does not look like it was done by a bed sheet. Again, I'm not a medical examiner, but it's also interesting that Jean-Luc Brunel hung himself in prison. And that's something that I need to look into. So I don't want to say too much about that because I might say something incorrectly. I just think it's quite funny that happened. And if nothing was really coming out, like he already got, an easy sentence for the first time. I do not believe he killed himself. And I mean, maybe I'll talk to other medical examiners and change my mind. But right now, no part of me thinks he hung himself. I think he was murdered.
I mean, if he wasn't murdered physically, I mean, by someone else, I think it's entirely possible that somebody could have put him up to it, simply by just messing with his head. I say, hey, you're stuck in here, boy, you wait till you get on the lot with what you've done. You're going to be getting at this, and you're going to get, and just put him up to it. And here's an easy way out for you. Here's this, and we're going to walk out of here, and you know what you need to do, or what you're going to have to face. And I wouldn't doubt that if that happened, the people that orchestrated that manipulation on him were people that didn't want him alive.
Right.
Yeah. And in that case, I guess it's possible that the medical examiner and other people involved would show that it's a probable suicide because but here again, well, who put him up to it? If that's what happened, it would be real easy to mess with someone's mind when you're locked in a cage 24 hours a day.
Oh yeah.
Turn off the lights or whatever. You could easily manipulate them.
Yeah. Yep.
Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I'm sure that, I'm sure he probably wasn't being treated very well either. I just think that if he had done it on his own accord, he would have done it earlier than when it happened or before he even got arrested. He doesn't think he didn't think he was a bad person. You know, we kind of see that in the Steve Bannon interview a little bit. I don't think he thought he was doing anything wrong. So it's not like he had a come to Jesus moment. Oh, I'm a terrible person, I should kill myself, you know? And I don't think he believed that anything would really happen to him.
Yeah. Well, we may never know the answer to that one.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, we've been talking to Sam. She is the host of the Shades of Jade podcast. Is covering a lot of things, but she's also been covering the Jeffrey Epstein case. Where can people find your podcast?
All right. I am on Spotify, Apple, Rumble, and YouTube. Shades of Jade Podcast, social media at Shades of Jade Pod. Instagram and X are the preferred social media, but you can find me on Facebook too.
Yeah. I found X to be really good for podcasting because of the fact that it's so real time. It's so trending.
Yes.
And all these other things going on. Have you been following what's been going on with the Guthrie case, the Savannah Guthrie and the mother missing and all this?
A little bit. I have a little bit. The camera footage from the Ring camera, whatever it is, you know, someone had a theory that was a female with a fake mustache on. And now when I look at it and I see those eyes and those eyebrows, I'm like, dang, I think that might be a female.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We'll have to see again. You know, this is February 12th, so maybe in a couple of weeks you can come back on again and we can update everybody on what's going on with Epstein and what's going on with the Guthrie case. That one is really bizarre because I got to tell you, in the United States, I mean, people go missing when they're out and about, and especially around the world. American citizens are, pretty prized targets. But in the United States, when somebody actually breaks into your home and with security, breaks the locks, goes into your home, abducts you and takes you out and then asks for ransom, that is very rare. Yeah. That doesn't happen very often. And most of the time it doesn't, turn out very well. I mean, there's the Lindbergh baby. In 1960 or so, there was the Coors abduction, the same from the Beer family. I don't know what happened with Patty Hearst. God only knows what happened there. Yes.
Elizabeth Smart made it home.
Yes. Yeah. There was, and John Bonet Ramsey, I think that whole thing was a sham to disguise the murder.
Now, did you hear she maybe is in the Epstein files?
Really?
Real fast.
Go ahead.
So there's a photo of her at a pageant, and in the background there, again, this is speculation, there's a photo of a woman, and it looks like the profile of Ghislaine Maxwell, and other pageant moms in Jean Bonnet's circle said that they did see her there. She would be scouting young girls at pageants. Then there's a photo in Epstein's home where I believe it's him. He has a little girl on his shoulders with her face blurred out, and her outfit is almost identical to one that we see Jean Bonnet Ramsey pictured in often. So that is I'm going to explore that further, but it might be nothing.
Yeah, that was a weird case too. Okay, that was a very weird case, but it was pretty obvious at some point that that child was killed in the house, and that ransom note was a distraction. Yeah, and then I kind of have, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that when it comes to the Guthrie case, that something went wrong. I don't know if it was a robbery or something went wrong, and I have a feeling that this is a distraction. See with and here again, just speculating with the audience here. Typically, a professional thief is somebody you don't have to fear. They're in and out of your house so quick you don't even know they were there. So you go looking for your jewelry. You're like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
They're not going to confront you. One of the other types of people that you don't want to confront and you don't want to meet is somebody who breaks into your home when they know you are there. If they know you are there, there's some sort of an urgency. They need a quick fix or whatever. And at that point, when they're breaking into your home, when they know you are there, you have to certainly presume that they are willing to do you harm or willing to terrorize you or willing to kill you or something.
Yeah.
Okay. But even in that case, they're going to get in and out quick. They're not going to hang out there. With this case, kidnappings in particular, if they're going to go off well for ransom, they have to be done quick. And the idea that somebody's going to break in, they have to abduct this woman. They have to get her out of there, which means either a car or something. And there's no evidence of this. This person disappeared into the dark. And then the other hardest part is getting paid. That's the hardest part about doing something like this.
Right.
And this has gone on for several weeks now. And typically this wouldn't, if this was a true kidnapping by people who know what they were doing, this would have been over in 24 to 48 hours. They're not going to let it stretch out 2 weeks. Every minute that it goes on at this point is a greater chance that they're going to get caught.
Yeah.
So I'm skeptical that this is an act of kidnapping. Now, I'm sorry to say, I think it's going to have a bad outcome, but you never know. You absolutely never know. But you have an opinion, or you?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a real kidnapping, unfortunately, I don't think she's alive. I think she's been gone since within the first 48 hours, especially considering her need for that medication.
Yeah.
So I almost want it to not be a real kidnapping, so that maybe she is alive and this is some sort of hoax. But I really don't know what the benefit of all of this would be to do something like this. So.
Yeah. And again, this is all speculation, but we'll revisit it at some point. Well, I want to thank you so much, Sam, for coming on, and best of luck with your podcast. Of course, you can visit us pretty much anytime you want. All you got to do is you got something to talk about.
All right.
And we'd love to have you. My name is Billy Dees, and you can find the Billy Dees podcast just about anywhere podcasts are found. We are on all the major podcast platforms. And as a matter of fact, on a lot of little ones, every once in a while, somebody will tell me, I found you on such and such. And I'm like, what is that? I Google it, there I am. So if you want to find a podcast, just search up the Billy Dees podcast. I come right up. As far as social media goes, I would have to say that X is kind of like our social media home. A lot of times we post our video casts on there. And because of the fact that it is so real time, it is so trending and everything, X has worked, very well for us. If you go to that account, you can find our link tree, and there's a bunch of places that you can find us on other platforms as well. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast today, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X @BillyDees for updates about the program.
Do you listen to music or audiobooks on streaming devices such as Sonos or Amazon speakers? How about on your car sound system? If you use Spotify, Audible, or Amazon Music on any of these systems, you can also listen to the Billy Dees podcast the same way. Billy and his team go the extra mile to make sure our podcasts sound as good or better than anything on the radio. Listening to the Billy Dees podcast has never been easier. You literally just have to ask.